Hello ladies and gentlemen, wish you are always in a happy condition in this pandemic. Don't worry, we will keep learning no matter what. In this opportunity, our team will present Cognitivism and another supporting topics. Before we go, let me introduce our team member. First, Miss Elfrida Shabriani. Second, it's me, Kartikawati. And Mr. Gugun Anggun Nurhalim. Also, Miss Yohanna Dea Angelica. Feel free to ask questions related to the topic in the Q&A session. Let's get to the first part.
Hello guys, my name is Elfrida. Let me start the presentation. I would like to explain history of Cognitivism. Cognitivism begins in 1950s. The development of Cognitivism happened in the 1950s as the dominant theory of learning. Unfortunately, the impact of it in the language learning occurred in 1970s. Cognitivism as a reaction against behaviorism. So, why cognitivism theory appears as the response of behaviorism theory? It was because the behavioral psychologists tried to avoid the use of mental process in our mind. They tried to erase the cognitivism theory. In other words, they just would like to explain something which is observable, not the unobservable one. Cognitivists objected to behaviorists because they felt that behaviorists thought learning was simply reactionary and ignored the idea that thinking plays a role. One of the most criticism addressed to behaviorism was Chomsky's argument that language couldn't be acquired purely through conditioning and must be at least partly explained by the existence of some inner abilities. Next slide. So what is cognitivism? Cognitivism is a learning theory that focuses on the processes involved in learning rather than on the observed behavior. It means that the theory occurs inside the learner's mind consciously. Cognitivism focuses on the inner mental activities. The cognitive theory focuses on the conceptualizations of students' learning processes and addresses the issues of how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. Learning is concerned not so much with what learners do, but with what they know and how they come to acquire it. Knowledge acquisition is described as a mental activity that entails internal coding and structuring by the learner. In the cognitivism, the learner is viewed as a very active participant in the learning process. Next slide. Principles of cognitivism in education. Cognitivism involves the study of mental processes. It starts from sensation, then perception, attention, encoding, and memory. The first one is sensation. It shows how the stimuli derived from external stimuli is registered in sensory before it being sent to the following process. This is the first step. And then the second principle is perception, which shows as the cognitive process that allows people to take information through their sense or sensation and then utilize this information to respond and interact with the world. The third one is attention, which traces in the cognitive process that allows people to focus on a specific stimulus in the environment. The fourth principle is encoding. As the principle of cognitive theory focuses on the importance of encoding information after something being perceived and attended to stimuli. The way to encode the information can be done through organizing and then form it in the form of schema. It's about how we process what our attention admits into the mind. The last one is memory. Memory is the ability to keep and remind the information in our mind. It is an important cognitive process that allows people to encode, store, and retrieve information. It is a critical component in the learning process and allows people to retain knowledge about the world and their personal histories. It consists of short-term memory, long-term memory, and sensory memory. The important cognitive theories. Cognitive is a learning theory that emphasized in the process which happens inside the learners. In this case, there are three important types of cognitive theories. It starts from the Piaget's cognitive development, 1896 until 1980. Piaget is the famous psychologist from Swiss who describes cognitivism theory in the cognitive developmental theory. According to HAP 2003, Piaget's theory states that the children actively construct their understanding of the world and go through stages of cognitive development. It means that Piaget described cognitivism in the stage development of children when they are ready to construct the meaning of things through their own understanding, which starts from the simple to complex thing. Next is Vygotsky's socioculture, 1896 until 1934. Vygotsky is a Russian psychologist who emphasized the cognitivism theory based on the developmental analysis, the role of language, and social relation. According to HAP 2003, there are three claims of Vygotsky. Their child's cognitive skills can be understood only when they are developmentally analyzed and interpreted. It means that if someone wants to know the origin and the transformation from beginning to the next, he must take a part in child's cognitive functioning. And then Vygotsky's second claim is cognitive skills are mediated by words, language, and forms of discourse, which serves as a psychological tools for facilitating and transforming mental activity. It means that language is an important tool for children in early childhood in order to plan their activities and solve the problems. His third claims describe knowledge is situated and collaborative. It means that knowledge occurred in environments through the interaction with others collaboratively. And then next, the last one is the information processing approach. According to HAP 2003, the information processing approach emphasizes that individuals manipulate information processing approach is same with cognitive developmental theory by Piaget that emphasizes the individual's learning, but the information processing approach doesn't describe development as like stage in the Piaget. Green 2003 states that information processing approach involves three basic steps. They are encoding, storage, and retrieval. The information that is coding must be transferred through three basic memory before it can be stored and retrieved. The three basic memories are sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. The sensory memory is a type of memory that consists of the important and clear information in order to give signal for the useful ones. And then the short-term memory is a type of memory which is famous as working memory. It has short capability and a period of time. And then the last one is long-term memory. It's a type of memory that has very large data and very long duration. To make the information is still keep in long-term memory, people usually make mnemonics or creating outline as a tool to keep the meaningful information in their mind.
So, Ladies and gentlemen, after long explanation from Miss Elfrida, do you know how does cognitivism absolutely work? Here we go. First, cognitivism involves the input in the environment. Second, the mediational process, which involves mental event. What is mental event? It involves memory, perception, attention, and even problem solving. And the last is the output behavior. In this part, we will talk about LAD. Do you know what LAD is? LAD is Language Acquisition Device. According to Mr. Noam Chomsky in 2009 as a cognitive scientist who is also known as the father of modern linguistics, Language Acquisition Device or LAD is a postulated organ of the brain that is supposed to function as a congenital device for learning symbolic language. The LAD is hypothetical tool hardwired into the brain that helps children rapidly learn and understand language. Chomsky is of the view that children are born with an innate propensity for language acquisition, and this ability makes the task of learning a first language easier than it would otherwise be. The human brain is ready naturally for language in the sense when children are exposed to speech, certain general principles for discovering or structuring language automatically begin to operate, and the LAD is activated when the child enters the world. Language Acquisition Device or LAD is exploited to explain the remarkable speed with that children learn to speak, and the considerable similarity in the way grammatical patterns are acquired across different children and languages. According to Chomsky, the presence of universal grammar in the brains of children allows them to deduce the structure of their native languages from mere exposure. The child learns a set of generalizations or rules governing the way in which sentences are formed in the following sequence. First, the child gets an input as primary linguistic data, the adult speech. After that, it becomes general language learning principle. And here's the LAD word. And it becomes grammatical knowledge, the rules to produce child speech as an output.
Hello, my name is Yohanna Dea Angelica, and I will continue our discussions about cognitive development theory from Chomsky point of view. Wolfram Chomsky is an American linguist, cognitive scientist, logician, historian, political critic, and activist. Chomsky is an institute professor and professor emeritus in the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy. Chomsky developed the cognitive development theory. Attention to this theory has increased dramatically since the middle of the 20th century. Chomsky stated that while some mental processes are measurable, it is virtually impossible to adequately establish what determines how an individual perceives, remembers things, or solves problems. Thus, cognitive development theory explores the mental process used in the formations of all internal processes such as perception, intuitions, and reasoning. We're gonna discuss about Chomsky cognitive development theory. Chomsky believed that the brain programmed to pay attention to information that appeals to one or more of our emotions. For example, here is happiness. Cognitive psychology concerns how people perceive, understand, evaluate, and think. Cognitive psychologists argue that the mind is a processor of information. We receive information through the sense. We try to understand that information and its relation to us, and we transmit information to the others. Thus, without cognition, full understanding and realization of mental process is impossible. Perception is influenced by emotions and cultural background. What appears one way to one individual will vary greatly to the next. Chomsky believed that every human child has the biological ability to acquire language. Developmentally normal children construct the grammar of his or her native language without the help of others. However, two conditions exist in order for the child to perform. First, he must recognize the physical and social events which are encoded in language. Second, he must be able to process, organize, and store linguistic information is according to slogan. And in other words, the children must be able to comprehend both meaning and the form of the syllables in order to process internally. The field of linguistics and psycholinguistics has since been defined by pro and cons reaction to Chomsky. Naturally, children acquire the first word by placing meaning upon familiar object. For example, the word bird has no meaning to a child until the child associates bird. When recognitions or cognition occur, the child will gradually obtain more vocabulary words as well as the mental acuity to use them. Chomsky observed that children know how to form a sentence, but they do not know what they know how. This is where the study of psycholinguistics becomes much more interesting, because it is here that the scientists try to understand what exactly constructs the LAD and watch it varies from child to child. The language acquisition device or LAD is controversial claim from language acquisition research proposed by Noam Chomsky in the 1960s. The conventions of a language are learned by interacting with experienced users, and humans acquire perceptions and comprehensions of language through language acquisitions. This also allows them the capability to reproduce this knowledge in conversations with others. Humans are not limited to finite vocabulary. New words and phrases are constantly being coined, especially with regards to scientific and technological fields. What scientists still fail to pinpoint is precisely how first and second language are acquired. And all sentences are built from syntactical units that have been assigned specific places or word order in a sentence. However, Chomsky posted that native speakers are born with an innate ability to develop language because they are born with a cognitive sense of language. Okay, we come to the conclusions. This is the last for me for our reinforcement. Chomsky believed that reuse it or lose it, because how the brain will help us think and learn. And actually, brain research provides clear support for it.
Okay, I will continue the material. My name is Nurhalim. KRASHEN Input Hypothesis. Stephen KRASHEN is an expert in the field of linguistics, specializing in the theories of language acquisition and development. Much of his recent research has involved the study of non-English and bilingual language acquisition. Since 1980, he has published well over 100 books and articles, and has been invited to deliver over 300 lectures at universities throughout the United States and Canada. KRASHEN theory of SLE consists of 5 main hypotheses. The acquisition learning hypothesis, it is the most fundamental of the 5 hypotheses in KRASHEN's theory, and the most widely known among linguists and language teachers. According to KRASHEN, learning is less important than acquisition. The monitor hypothesis, it explains the relationship between acquisition and learning, and defines the influence of the latter on the former. The monitoring function is the practical result of the learner grammar. According to KRASHEN, the acquisition system is the uteracy initiator, while the learning system performs the role of the monitor or the editor. The input hypothesis, it attempts to how the learner acquires a second language and how second language acquisition takes place. The input hypothesis is only concerned with acquisition, not learning. According to this hypothesis, the learner improves and progresses along the natural order. When she or he receives a second language input, that is one step beyond his or her current stage of linguistic competence. The affective filter hypothesis, it embodies KRASHEN's view that a number of affective variables play a facilitative but non-causal role in the second language acquisition. KRASHEN claims that learners with high motivation are better equipped for success in the second language acquisition. The natural order hypothesis, it is based on research findings which suggest that the acquisition of grammatical structures follows a natural order, which is predictable. However, KRASHEN points out that the implication of the natural order hypothesis is not that a language program syllabus should be based on the order found in the studies. The educational implication of cognitive theories. Problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is a student-centered approach in which students learn about a subject by working in group to solve an open-ended problem. Discovery learning, it takes place in a problem-solving situation where the learner draws on his own experiences and prior knowledge, and it is a method of instruction through which students interact with their environment by exploring and manipulating objects, wrestling with questions and controversies, or performing experiments. Strategies. Cognitive strategy is an organized internal competence which can lead the students in their learning process. For example, thinking process, problem solving, and decision making. It enables the students to think systematically and critically. In other words, it will make their thinking process unique. According to Schumann and Merkel, the weaknesses of cognitivism is the learners learn the way to finish the task, and the strength is the students are trained to do the task in the same way to produce the students who have consistency behavior. Okay, that's all our presentation. Thank you for watching. We will open first session for Q&A on WA group, and thank you.